Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Listen, before we go any further, I need you to hear this carefully. The moment she pulled back, the moment her energy shifted, your mind started running wild, didn't it? It's that uneasy silence, that sudden coolness, that confusing distance that makes a man question everything about himself. And right now, you're not here by accident. You're here because a woman's lack of interest hit a part of you that most men never admit exists. If you've ever felt that sting, that drop in your stomach when she suddenly seems gone, then stay with me. And while you're here, make sure you subscribe and like this video, because what you're about to hear is something men were never taught, but absolutely need. When a woman stops showing interest, most men panic on the inside. They start performing, trying harder, saying more, explaining more, texting faster, filling the silence because the silence feels like rejection. But the truth is this, a woman's pullback isn't always a rejection. Sometimes it's a test of emotional grounding. Sometimes it's a reflection of her own confusion. And sometimes, yes, she's losing interest, but not for the reasons you think. I want you to imagine something. Picture the last time you spoke to her. Maybe it was a text conversation where she went from opening up to suddenly giving you short replies. Maybe it was a call where the warmth in her voice disappeared. Or maybe you met in person and her eyes were somewhere else, not fully on you. In those moments, your instinct might have been to ask what's wrong or to try to fix something you didn't break. But the worst thing a man can do at that moment is chase her emotionally. Because when she feels you panicking, when she senses you abandoning your own self-worth to get her attention back, something deep inside her shifts. Attraction collapses, not because she dislikes you, but because she can feel you slipping out of your own masculine center. She feels the weight of your anxiety, your fear, your need for validation, and no woman can stay attracted in the presence of a man who is emotionally collapsing in real time. But here's the part no one ever told you. Interest isn't lost from distance. Interest is lost when a man tries to compensate for distance. Now let's get brutally honest. When she's not showing interest, your immediate reaction is often to overanalyze every word, every pause, every emoji. But here's the truth. The moment you do that, you are giving her the power over your emotional state, and no man should ever hand that over willingly. The reality is, she is not some puzzle you can solve with logic. She is a human being, and her attraction is tied to your energy far more than your words. Think about this. Every time a man chases, texts more than necessary, explains himself, or seeks reassurance, he unintentionally communicates insecurity. And insecurity is seductive to no one. Yet, most men believe persistence equals power. They think the more they try, the more they'll pull her back. But the law of attraction works opposite to effort. Women respond to presence, not to desperation. They feel it instantly when a man is grounded, emotionally independent, and operating from self-respect. That's the invisible force that pulls her in without a single word. Here's a truth that will sting. If she is cool, distant, or seemingly uninterested, it is not your job to chase. It is your job to evaluate yourself. Ask, am I operating from confidence or from fear? Am I living my life fully, or am I waiting for her approval, like a boy waiting for a teacher's nod? Most men fail this test without even realizing it, and it's why so many relationships crumble before they even start, why so many men feel invisible to the women they desire. You must understand, attraction is energy-based. It is not a transaction, a scorecard, or a contest of who texts more. Women are instinctively drawn to men who have a magnetic inner life, men who are not shaken by silence, who are not ruled by the unpredictable tides of female attention, who operate from clarity rather than anxiety. When you can embody that, distance or disinterest no longer terrifies you. Instead, it becomes an opportunity for her to step up, to invest, or to reveal her true feelings naturally. You do not create attraction by chasing. It emerges when you refuse to shrink for her. So the next time you feel that pull of panic when she pulls back, pause. Breathe, center yourself, because the way you respond to her distance is the single most powerful thing that determines whether she will lean in or continue fading away. Let me tell you something that most men never hear. The moment she cools off, it's actually a doorway. a doorway into clarity about who she is, what she wants, and how much she values you. Not in words, but in actions. Most men are terrified of this doorway because it exposes the truth. They have been leaning too heavily on attention they assumed was guaranteed. And when that attention is suddenly withdrawn, the fear hits like a punch in the gut. That fear, though, is exactly what you need to transform into power. Here's a subtle secret. Women are wired to notice energy, not excuses. She doesn't care if you feel hurt. She doesn't care if you are confused. What she notices is whether your world revolves around her absence or whether you continue to move forward with your life, your purpose, your mission. That is the invisible, magnetic force that draws her back or repels her permanently. Men waste months, even years, trying to manufacture attraction with texts, calls, gifts, or explanations. But none of it works if they're not first secure within themselves. The next time you talk to her, the key is this: operate from a state of calm confidence. Do not overextend. Do not beg for attention. Speak with clarity and listen without over-investing emotionally. You see, men believe showing care equals winning her over. That's a trap. Real care is demonstrated quietly, by respecting her space, by maintaining your standards, by refusing to let her distance dictate your self-worth. Women feel this. They feel when a man has his own gravity, and it changes everything. Understand the psychology here. Absence paired with presence creates curiosity. A man who respects himself, continues his path, and is emotionally unavailable to being pulled off center creates a tension she can't ignore. She begins to wonder what she is losing, what is drawing her in without effort, and what energy she cannot replicate. Attraction, in its purest form, is not about chasing. It is about being so complete, so grounded, so inherently magnetic that her interest must rise to meet your level. And if it doesn't, it tells you everything you need to know about her intentions, without words, without drama. So the next time she seems distant, your move isn't to chase, it's to rise, to center yourself, to make yourself the man whose energy no one can take for granted. That is power. That is influence. That is the step every man must take to never be lost in a woman's silence again. Now, let's cut through the illusions that most men cling to. You might think that if she's pulling away, you need to win her back with charm, gifts, or constant attention. That's a lie you've been fed. The truth is far simpler and far more powerful. What she responds to isn't effort, it's emotional sovereignty. A man who stands in his own value, regardless of her behavior, instantly becomes magnetic. He doesn't chase, he doesn't panic, and he doesn't negotiate his self-worth for attention. And when you can master that, attraction shifts in ways that no clever tactic or pickup line ever could. Here's what most men miss. Women do not test you consciously. They test you unconsciously through your energy, your response to tension, and your ability to handle uncertainty. When she pulls back, she's observing a pattern, not a single action. She's seeing, does he crumble? Does he obsess? Does he make himself smaller? Or does he maintain his own presence, his own life, his own standard of masculine strength? The answers to those questions tell her everything about your value in her world. You do not need to tell her, you need to embody it. Imagine the next conversation. You say your words calmly, intentionally, without desperation. You ask questions, but not to validate your worth. You listen, but not to fish for approval. You carry your energy like a man who is fully occupied with life, purpose, and ambition. And here's the secret. That energy is more persuasive than any compliment, gift, or argument. It creates curiosity. It creates tension. It makes her want to lean in, to see the man who is unshakable in his own frame. Most men never get this, which is why they are stuck chasing, stuck anxious, stuck invisible. Now, recognize the brutal honesty in this. If she is distant and does not respond to your grounded presence, it tells you more than any text ever could. It tells you about her priorities, her emotional availability, and her willingness to invest in a man who respects himself. And that knowledge, hard as it is, frees you from wasting time, energy, and dignity on someone whose presence is not aligned with your worth. The power here is not in the chase. It is in stillness, clarity, and self-mastery. The moment you stop reacting to her distance and start acting from your own centeredness, the dynamic flips. You are no longer a boy hoping for attention. You are a man whose value is undeniable, whose energy commands respect, and whose attraction is rooted in sovereignty. That is how she begins to notice, how she begins to invest, and how you reclaim control over the interaction. Now, I want you to face a truth most men avoid. Attraction is never guaranteed. It is not a promise, a contract, or a reward for effort. It is a reflection of energy, presence, and alignment. The moment you internalize that, everything changes. You stop measuring her responses like a scoreboard and start observing her behavior like data. You notice patterns, not excuses. You feel the difference between genuine interest and a test of your emotional foundation. And when you act from this awareness, you no longer get lost in the uncertainty that destroys most men. Here's the pivotal insight. The man who understands female psychology knows that distance is not an enemy, it is a mirror. It reflects back the areas where you have been dependent on her attention for validation. It shows you whether you have been operating from your own life, your own purpose, your own masculine energy, or whether you have been bending to the rhythm of her presence. Most men never see this. They panic, they chase, they beg, and they shrink. But a man who rises above the fear, who meets the silence with clarity, immediately sets himself apart. That is magnetic. That is irresistible. That is power. When you approach her next time, do so with precision. Speak clearly. Speak with purpose. Speak with energy that is calm, grounded, and unwavering. You do not over-explain. You do not overshare. You do not ask for permission to exist in her world. Instead, you are a man whose presence is valuable, whose attention is not given freely to panic or insecurity. And she will feel it. She will notice the difference between a man who collapses and a man who commands his own center. That difference is like a gravitational pull. It draws her in, naturally, effortlessly. Understand this deeply. Her testing is not cruel. It is instinctual. Women instinctively measure the emotional stability and inner strength of the men around them. Your reactions speak louder than words. When she senses that your energy is unshakable, that you do not fold under her distance, she begins to step forward. And if she does not, it is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of her limitations, her priorities, and her willingness to meet you where you stand. That clarity is liberating. It saves you from endless chasing and emotional turmoil. Remember, attraction is earned through presence, not performance. It is felt, not forced. Your task is simple, yet few men can master it. Remain grounded, remain sovereign, remain magnetic. Let her actions reveal her intentions. Let your energy dictate the dynamic. And let the next interaction be a statement of your value, not a question. That is how a man turns silence, distance, or disinterest into clarity, influence, and ultimate attraction. Now let's seal this truth once and for all. The way you respond to her lack of interest is the single most revealing moment of your masculinity. Most men waste years reacting impulsively, chasing endlessly, and trying to prove worthiness through attention. But you, if you apply what I'm teaching you, can flip that script entirely. You become the man whose presence, confidence, and emotional stability create attraction automatically. No games, no begging, no over-explaining, just the undeniable force of a man who refuses to shrink for anyone. Picture this. The next time she seems distant or unresponsive, you pause, you breathe, you step fully into your own life, your own purpose, your own world. You do not chase. You do not apologize for your energy. You do not overanalyze or send 10 follow-up texts. Instead, you exist as a man whose emotional state is independent of her attention. That independence is magnetic. It creates tension, curiosity, and desire without effort. Women are drawn not to desperation, but to mastery. And mastery starts with you. Here's what most men fail to realize. Attraction is not a linear transaction. It is dynamic, fluid, and energy-based. When you overinvest emotionally, you signal scarcity. You signal that her attention is more important than your life. That is death to attraction. But when you respond with calm confidence, when you communicate with clarity, when you maintain your frame without drama, You signal abundance. You signal that your world is complete, and if she wants a place in it, she must rise to match your level. That is power, that is influence, that is magnetic. Understand this: distance, silence, or coolness is not punishment, it is information. It reveals her intentions, priorities, and emotional availability, and it tells you whether your energy should continue to be invested or redirected. Most men ignore these signals and suffer silently, but a man who sees clearly, who moves deliberately, who remains grounded, transforms every moment of disinterest into clarity, control, and leverage. You are no longer reactive, you are intentional. You are no longer lost, you are sovereign. So the next time she pulls back, remember, your value is never measured by her attention. Your attraction is not created by chasing, over-explaining, or panicking. It is cultivated in stillness, confidence, and unwavering presence. Speak with power, act with purpose, and live your life fully, independent of her response. When you do this, you no longer fear her distance, you command it. You no longer question her interest, you dictate your energy. That is the truth most men never hear, but it is the truth that will make you unforgettable, irresistible, and unstoppable in the world of attraction.